My name is Grace Hayek, and on behalf of the Glencoe Public Library, I welcome you to our webinar with David Roos of STRAAT. Located in a dynamic arts complex in Amsterdam, STRAAT is the world's newest and biggest museum for urban art. This event is presented in partnership by the Glencoe Public Library and the Highland Park Library. Additional event sponsors include the public libraries of Clarendon Hills, Deerfield, Evanston, Fremont, Plainfield, Vernon area, and Winnetka Northfield. Thank you all for helping to bring this event to a larger audience. Our presenter, David Roos, will tell us first about the founding of the museum and discuss a few of his favorite pieces. Then he'll take us on a walk through the museum, which is dramatically lit as it's nighttime in the Netherlands. He'll discuss the history of street art, where it's going, and a bit about STRAAT's community projects. He'll be glad to answer your questions as we enjoy the tour. Now let me tell you a little bit about him. David Roos plays two roles at the museum. As its curator, David is responsible for the composition of the collection on display. He's in daily contact with participating artists and with new artists for future projects inside and outside the museum doors. The art form develops constantly, and it is his task to keep the museum both innovative and relevant. As the creative director of STRAAT, David helps lead the STRAAT team to realize the museum's mission and vision. David, we're so pleased to have you here today. I'll let you get started now.
Hi there. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you all. First of all, thank you, Grace, for the introduction. And a big thank you to the Glencoe Public Library and the Highland Park Public Library for making this event happening and the invitation to me as STRAAT, and a warm welcome to everybody that is tuning in right now. My name is David, indeed, and I'm the curator and creative director of this beautiful museum that you can see in your screen at the moment. The iconic mural that you can see is a painting of Anne Frank with a quote, "Let me be myself," of her diary. And it was painted by the Brazilian artist Eduardo Cobra. And you might know one of his paintings that he painted in Chicago, actually, of the blues legend Muddy Waters. Next, please. So a little bit about myself, next to what Grace already told you. I have a completely different background. I studied medicine and a master's in healthcare management. And that's not the normal way to become a curator of a street art museum. And I worked at child protection. And my way into the street art scene was through my street art photography with my Instagram just behind it, Drews86. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about STRAAT. Natalie, if you can show the movie.
New York in the 70s. What started off as an audacious symbol for self-expression rapidly flipped to a global art movement that allowed an outcast to share their stories. A new way of celebrating creativity within a young group of artists, turning street signs into galleries. Sites such as the NDSM Wharf, what used to be Amsterdam's iconic shipyard, a haven for pioneers, over time evolved into a district that expressed freedom and tolerance, where creativity gathered. Now it became the place that houses an elegant chaos, where a worldwide movement reunites under the same roof. A place that gives home to street art, artworks as big as walls, made here by artists from around the world, revealing the stories behind art that would remain untold within the streets. This is STRAAT.
To the next, please. Yes. Well, that was just a small introduction of this museum. And as you can see, we're located in a very vibrant and creative area. It very much fits the art form by itself. And funny enough, as you can see, this ship wharf and the warehouse we're looking at right now, we didn't start with the idea of creating a museum from the origin. The owner of the museum is also the owner of a flea market that was held in the same warehouse a long time ago. At some point, he wanted to have some of the decoration painted by some street artists that were painting outside. Next, please. Because the building itself is actually an 8,000 square former warehouse. It's a monument, but the outside is a well-known hall of fame for street artists and graffiti. To the next one, please. We evolved, and obviously there was a long time between the previous picture and this one, but the first idea was to have some decoration for the flea market. The owner of the flea market paid some of the artists to come and paint, and from that idea we evolved into starting this museum. To the next one, please. And from this idea, we started with the idea of starting a museum. We aim to share our passion for this beautiful art movement that we're living in right now, actually. In my opinion, it's one of the art forms of this moment. We showcase both upcoming talents and big names, as Eduardo Cobra on the outside. But the beautiful thing of STRAAT is it's a really small team, and it makes it very personal and in some way even family, especially since we work with all of the artists and those are very important to us. So if you can move to the next one. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite artworks, the one to the left, which is a very well-known artist, Findeck from England, and also a very important friend. And this museum was built on friendships. All of these artists are still alive, and it's a very important place for both us and all of the artists involved. To the next one, please. So in STRAAT, we have had over 250 artists coming to make an artwork for the museum. I'm aware it says 150 artworks by 140 artists, but we have a large storage and we have an ever-growing collection. And that's the great part of this museum. You can enter the museum as a visitor and you can just stumble upon an artist that is painting live in the museum. Yeah, so an important part of the museum STRAAT, which is basically the word street in Dutch, is that everybody needs to have his roots on the streets. So all of these artists that are involved started in the streets, most of them when they were only like 13 or 14 years old. Well, what I just said was a unique quality of this museum is that everybody painted inside the museum. Everybody came to Amsterdam to add their work to the collection and add their work to the museum. And what it makes it even more special is that you can see them painted live in the museum, which just basically feels the same as in the streets. They use the same techniques, the same styles, the same topics, and with the monument being so raw, it feels almost like you're painting inside or painting in the streets instead of inside. To the next one, please. If you can play the video, then we can show a little bit of an artist at work. Thank you. To the next one, please. I already saw a question. I will answer the questions later, but there are actually a lot of different ways of using street art and graffiti in the streets. The normal way and what everybody expects to be graffiti and street art is with a spray can, but there are also a lot of artists that use brushes or even stickers, paste ups. They use, as you saw on the video, the last video we just saw, somebody paint with ink. There are people putting urban installations inside the streets. So there are lots of different ways of expressing yourself, except for despite the spray cans. So all the artists that came here, we got to really know them. We had interviews with them. We tried to understand the story of the artist and the story of the painting. So we had 200 interviews with all of these artists, but we gave them complete creative freedom to paint whatever they wanted. And we selected the 5 different themes. I will announce them soon, by listening to all of the different interviews with the artists. So we came up with the different themes of personal, aesthetical, grounded, conscious, and empathic. But the beauty of our museum and the artworks that we show is we could have made 5 different themes as easy. There are so many similarities between different artists from different countries, from different continents. And every artist inspires another artist if they come here and paint in the museum. The beautiful thing of the museum is once a new artist enters the museum, they are very much triggered to give us and themselves their best, because it feels like a very special place to be in, coming from me, but that's what I hear from the artists. So everybody is challenged to give them their best. To the next one, please. And by doing all of these interviews and spending all this time with the artists, well, as Grace told you before, my role is to be really in touch with the artists, to be in touch with them on a daily basis. I travel to meet them. I invite them to come to the museum, and we create this mutual respect by building this museum, and also really depending on the artist by building this museum together. And we build beautiful friendships and relationships with all of these artists. Unfortunately, we built the museum together with these artists for the last 5 to 6 years. And as you all know, we had to face this pandemic the last 2 years. We opened the museum the 9th of October in 2020, and only a couple weeks later, we had to go into lockdown. And because of that, we weren't able to invite the artists to celebrate the opening of STRAAT with us. We found a small way of sharing the experience of the museum with them, and it's by doing STRAAT talks. So if you do the next one, please. So during the STRAAT talks, I connect with the participating artists. In this picture, you can see, well, obviously me, but also the artist below, Pure Evil, Charlie, with his youngster, his son. And by doing the STRAAT talks, we show the face of the artist to our followers, to the public, to our guests, as we call our visitors, and it brings it more to life. And the beautiful thing of the museum STRAAT is that unlike most of the museums around the planet, all of the artists are still alive, despite one, unfortunately, but all of these artists are still alive, and that makes it a beautiful place to work in, and sometimes challenging, I must admit, but most of the time it's a very beautiful place to work in, with all of these happy artists that really want to be part of the museum. Well, as I just told you before, we right now have over 150 artworks, but the collection is ever growing and ever growing. And I've got some interesting artists to come in the following weeks and months. But we've just added a very interesting work to the collection. So that's the next slide, please. Thank you, Natalie. So here I will describe it to you, and it also gives you the feeling that there's much more to it with street art and graffiti than just a beautiful picture or a quick name on an electricity box or a metro, or there are plenty of ways. And this shutter, what we see in front of us, is actually a remnant of the war in Lebanon between the 70s and the 90s. And the artist Jad El-Khoury from Lebanon came up with the idea to move this shutter full with bullet holes to our museum. The crazy thing about it, we worked on this project together for the last 5 to 6 years. We opened it a couple of weeks ago. Well, it's a bit more now, a month. But we opened on the same day that the war in the Ukraine started. And what we see in front of us is a shutter with bullet holes, and the artist asks the audience to put little papers, little post-its with messages of hope and love, and send them to people living in war zones. And doing so, you put the paper inside one of the bullet holes. All of these papers we collect, we come up with keywords that sum at all of these words, and we're going to send these words, these keywords, to artists living in war zones. These artists that live there are going to paint the words on the wall and take pictures of the keywords. Once they made the words and painted them and took pictures of them, the pictures are going to get back to the museum, and we're going to make a photo exhibition out of these keywords made by artists in war zones. And with this, we're going to collect both money for them and for NGOs that we still need to pick. So this is an existing work. I hope to show you in a bit, actually. But I'm also going to show you one more work that is coming to the museum shortly. Because as you can see here, it's actually a shutter. We have several urban installations, as artists call them, and it's not only canvases or walls that you can see pop up in the streets or in STRAAT. To the next one, please. So here what we can see is a massive sort of futuristic flamingo unicorn bird that was made by the artist to the left. His name is called Doek 1, and he actually made this work for a museum in Valencia. And that's a beautiful thing of our museum, and the exciting thing for me as a curator is to also get beautiful artworks that were showcased in different museums in Europe, or as the shutter before from Beirut, from all over the world, and showcase them here in the museum. This work, for example, is to make people aware, because what we can't can't see in the picture, sorry, is that it's stuck in a net and that it's actually eating garbage. And it's making people aware that we need to cherish this planet for both ourselves and for all the animals living on this planet. And you see lots of these works in our fourth theme, conscious. As many of you, or maybe some of you, know Banksy for making plenty of works to raise awareness for political and social problems. We showcase that we have lots of artists that are focused on making people aware of different problems in the world. I'm very much looking forward to this one. I've been working on it for a long time with the artist. Recently, I visited him in Valencia, where he also had a big installation for a different festival, where the whole city of Valencia celebrated Las Fallas. I didn't know it before, and I'm not going to explain it right now, so don't worry. But this is the way I work with artists. We build up relationships, we build up trust and respect, and I show that I really care about giving them a platform and the importance of the museum and the street art form. If we can go to the next. This is also an artist that is coming soon to the museum. It's one of the works that we select in the topic of, the theme of empathical. And this theme is focused on artists that start with graffiti, as we know it on the subways, the tags and the names in the streets. But you see, like, many artists transform to optimize their own style of writing in the streets. And I thought this was a very good one to thank you for the first part, because it says, yeah, thank you, Grace. It shows please and thanks. So thanks for your attention until now. And okay, should I? Right. And I'm going to get my Steadicam, and I'm actually going to show you the museum. And I'm really more than interested to hear the questions. I'm more than happy to answer them or tell you more. I will tell you a little bit about the history of the street art and graffiti, and show you some of my favorites. And as I told you, I'm looking forward to hear some of your questions. It's going to be a little moment of switching. So if you give me just a second. I'm just going to put on my jacket because it's quite cold in the museum. And I'm going to put it like this because I know Nelly likes it more. Nelly is in the back arranging everything, so thanks for that. Right now we're in my office, but I'm going to show you the museum. Okay. At this moment you're still looking at me, but that's going to change very soon. There you go. Okay, I hope you're ready because I'm going to show you right now. Welcome to STRAAT. As you can see, it's a little bit difficult to. I hope you can hear me. This is a 8,000 square meter museum look like. I just need to go down and then I will continue my talk. If you have any questions for me, just let me know. I'm more than happy to answer them. And yeah, just come with me on this walk. How often do I change works? It wasn't really necessary until now, since we opened in October 2020, but we have been closed for such a long time due to the lockdown. But more artists are hearing about it, and more artists want to come to the museum. So for me right now, it's a really difficult task to select artists that need to go to storage, and that quite frequently we're changing paintings, and I will actually show you a couple of places where I'm going to change, where there will be canvases soon. There you go. So all of these really started in an organic way. We really respect the place where we're in. So all of these colors are the same as the colors of the building. The artist, is there an average size for each painting? Thank you very much. I was just going to tell you about it. The artists get different opportunities of painting a canvas. As you can see over here, this is the biggest size that we have. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't fit in your living room, because this is, and I'm sorry for the Americans, but it's 9 meters by 5 meters. Grace, can you maybe explain what's that in feet? I'm not sure.
It's really, really big.
It's really, it's really, really big. Yeah, that's also a very good explanation. So that's the biggest size that we have. And then this is the middle size, both to the left and to the right. And it's 5 meters by 3.5 meters high. And to the right of it, there, you have the smallest, and which is 2.5 by 3 meters. We're actually always evolving and always developing. So pretty soon, the whole space to there, and that's going to be 50 meters by 7 meters, is going to be one canvas, and it's going to be painted for, I'm not sure if you still know her. She's a singer from Holland. Her name is Eva Simons. She was quite well known for working together with David Guetta and Beyonce a decade ago. So it's also quite exciting, and that's going to happen in June. At the moment, we're in the first theme, and it's called Personal. I just wanted to select one of the paintings that shows a really beautiful story, and it's really personal. This artist is called Scout. He's a Spanish artist, and he lives in Amsterdam. And what we look at actually is his nightmare that he had between his 7th and his 14th year. We see a desert with a big hand installation or sculpture, and a hole in the ground with a key in it. And every time he had the nightmare that he fell into the hole and he woke up with a fever, and his father had to comfort him. He went to a child psychologist, and the psychologist advised him to start painting and drawing his nightmare on paper. The beautiful thing is the nightmare left, and because of this advice, he actually started painting. So that's one of the personal stories that we highlight in this quarter. I know that I have to move very slowly. And as you can see over here, you have actually the artists that are painted very realistically. So it's a bit of an Indiana Jones painting, but you can see Ballström and Whalen, and that's actually Whalen, and that's Ballström. And they painted one of the first paintings inside of this museum. I'm sure you can't see it from your screen, but we don't use normal canvas. It's not soft linen or anything.
It's actually some sort of plastic, what they also use for the outside of trucks. And yeah, well, I'm just going to tick a bit on it, but you have to believe me, it's plastic that they use for trucks, and we use it because it can get very cold inside this museum, as cold as it is outside, and it can get very warm, as warm as it is outside as well. And these types of canvases can deal with both of these different climates. We tell the visitors, or I should say our guests, as we call them, a bit of the history of the art form. And I'm just going to change because otherwise you're looking at a white screen. We tell them a bit about the history of the art form, and we tell them that it started in the 70s or even the late 60s in the United States. As we all know, New York was a very important city for this art form to start. But many claim that actually the first one that started with graffiti was cornbread. I'm pretty sure it was also announced in the announcement that I was going to do this talk. But cornbread actually came to the museum. And this was such a big honor for us to welcome the first graffiti writer inside our museum, where we focus so much on giving these artists a platform. And I can only say the respect was mutual, and it was a very happy moment to welcome him inside the museum. And it's beautiful that with this art form that is still so young, but also already over 50 years old, that most of the artists are still alive and can cherish these moments with us in a place like this. I'm not sure if there are any questions. I can't really see it. So, Grace, that's just for you. If there are any questions, then just...
There are lots of questions, yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I can see the Q&A, but then I have to click on it.
Oh,
yeah.
Would you rather I read them, or would you rather read them yourself?
Well, I've seen a couple of them with the different sizes and how often I change, but I didn't see any other questions. So if you maybe can read the next one.
Yes, this is just a little one. Did you reverse the R in STRAAT to copy the Swedish music group ABBA, or the USA Toys R Us stores that does the same thing?
Oh, that's a good question. I hope my brother is actually watching, because there was an agency that presented the names to me, and one of them was STRAAT, and I really liked to keep it simple and to keep it Dutch. And right away I told them, like, if you turn the R, you read art. And then my brother actually came up with the idea to turn the R in the logo. So it's not related to ABBA or Toys R Us.
Okay.
Is there a limit?
Thank you. Next question up just says, if someone's visiting Amsterdam, what's the easiest means of getting to the museum via public transit? I can answer that one, actually. Go to the central station and take the free ferry across the river, and then it's just a short walk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Well, you recognize the building from far away. But with the Anne Frank, of course, but it's a very quick ferry from Central Station, and you will be here in 10 to 11 minutes. I know the time because I take the ferry all the time, so you're here within no time. I saw a question about the building. The building is a monument, but we had to do lots of work before we were able to open the museum, because it's a monument. So we had to renovate all of the bricks that you can see up there before we were able to open the museum. Aside of that, it's a monument, so we're not allowed to do much. So you see still the tram rails. going from one way with the small doors, where the different parts of the ships entered, to the big doors where the ships left. Everything is still here. So we have the cranes. Well, I will continue walking. In the back, you can see the cranes. They're all still here. You need to watch out when you're walking because it's not really smooth. But yeah, people manage, and they love actually that it's in a place like this and not a clean building with white walls, and it fits perfectly, I would say. Right now, yes, Grace.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, tell me, it's fine.
Another question, do you limit how long each piece will stay in the exhibit?
No, not really. And I will come back to that question in a bit, and I will explain you why. Because like every piece is different, and there's a different, well, I don't want to say importance, but feeling to some of the paintings inside the museum, and it will be hard to ever shift them away and replace them. But it's a good question, and well, what I said before, it's the start of moving paintings and shifting them for others. So yeah, there's not a real answer to it right now, but hopefully many of the paintings can stay for quite some time, and people can still enjoy them. But it's also interesting to come back because, well, Grace, when were you here?
1.5 years ago. No,
right.
Sorry, 6 months ago.
Right. Well, even now it's completely, well, it's not completely different, but there are many different paintings compared to then. So it's definitely worth a visit a couple times a year. And just to announce to everybody, we're going to release a STRAAT membership, and then you can just come to the museum how often you want for a limited price. So yeah, it's very much worth to come visit multiple times.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, sure.
Another question from a mural artist named Beth. She wonders if you think that the artists are making their works for the museum, specifically for the museum, or are they doing it sort of out of sight? It's hard to.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a crazy coincidence, but with what I was just going to say, because many of the artists that come and paint inside the museum are really inspired by the location, and you see them with references to the Netherlands or Amsterdam or the wharf or even this warehouse. As you can see in front of me, I will just give you a little quiz question for a second, because Helen Proctor, this Australian artist that lived in Amsterdam for a while, painted this ode to a Dutch masters from the past, and it's obviously Van Gogh. And in this way, she was inspired by living in the Netherlands and being part of this museum. There we can see a Dutch myth. On top, we see lots of X's, because Amsterdam is well known for the 3 X's. So many of the artists are inspired by coming to Amsterdam and paint inside the museum.
Another question, someone wants to know, does the public interact with the artists when they're visiting the museum? Do the artists work while the public is there? Sorry.
Oh, I wanted to change to show myself again. That's a good question. Artists are used to interfere with people when they're painting in the streets, and they're quite used to painting inside the museum and talking to the visitors as well. And it's actually great to see that they're really happy to talk to the guests when they're here. Some of them actually leave books and ask the guests to come up with their interpretation of their work. And it also inspires them to look at their own painting in a different way. So yeah, it goes two ways. It's for the guest, it's a really beautiful experience to see an artist finally paint in real life, and for the artist, it's also a treat to welcome them here in the museum.
Someone else wants to know, who funds the museum? Do the artists donate their work, or do they get paid? And how does Amsterdam feel about this type of museum among its other museums?
Right. Well, as you can see, the man on top, he's the investor behind the museum. Yeah, he just started this project as well, as I told you before, as some sort of decoration for the flea market, and just got really fond of the whole project. So he's the guy behind it. Right now, we're still a private museum. We have our goals to introduce the museum year pass, as you can just translate it from the Dutch, hopefully in the future. But for now, it's a private museum that Amsterdam can visit, and they have to pay for it. But we see that they're really enthusiastic about it. We have quite some followers on Instagram, and I can see that more than half of them are actually from Amsterdam, so are local enthusiasts. And yeah. So I think that's answer to a couple of the questions that you just asked me.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, did you go over if do the artists donate their work, or do you pay them?
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. No, that's right. So the artists come here, and we pay for the flight, we pay for the hotel, we provide them with the materials, with the canvas, with the food, and then the artwork is here on loan. It's still their property. It's still their copyrights fully, and we are actually, but yeah, we say this all the time. It's a museum and in some way a gallery, because if you really want to buy the artwork, there's an opportunity of buying it. But I can assure you that it's really difficult to ship a 9x5 meter canvas, and it's just much better to reach out to the artist and get him to come and paint something for you. So they paint here. It's still their property. It's a really good way of exposure to them. We have a shop where they can also showcase their merch, their prints, books, all kinds of stuff. We have a gallery where we host different shows with different of our participating artists. So there are many different ways for them to also benefit from the museum, aside painting here.
Speaking of the shop, I'd like to let everyone know that it's also a great place to pick up spray paint in any color you can think of.
Yes, that's true. And we're actually expanding, Grace, so there are more colors coming every day. Yeah, so I was just referring that I would answer one of the questions later, because the time that every painting is staying in the museum, I can't really answer, but I was telling the people before that one of the artists passed away, and that's Therese. He was a dear friend from Spain, and he painted this beautiful canvas in 2017, only a couple of months before he passed away. He was really happy of being here and really motivated to give his fullest to finalize this work inside the museum. So this one is definitely never going away. And the beautiful story continues, because there is actually the widow of Therese. And she's also an artist. She comes from Colombia. She lives in Spain. And she came to the museum. She never saw the work of Therese in real life. And I gave her the canvas next to Therese to be united inside of this museum. So I can say for both of them, they will last a long time. And it's a beautiful story, and it's what makes this museum powerful and strong. And yeah, it's like family to work with this artist, and that's the beautiful part of it for me and for our small team, because it's a massive museum, and we're really trying to build this institute um, around the globe, a very well-known institute for street art and graffiti, but it's also still a small team with a lot of passion about it.
Another question is, do you have a contact with or a relationship with the Museum of Graffiti in Miami, Florida?
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. I was there in December, and we celebrated I think their second anniversary. We're in touch. We're in touch with lots of organizations and museums around the globe. But also for this, we're still finding our way. We're just here, and yeah, we need to prove ourselves, and we're aware of it.
Okay. Another question. Somebody says she photographed the mural of Anne Frank in 2018. What was in the building at that time? So just 4 years
We
ago.
were already we're just at the end of the museum. Well, at the first part. So when you paint, you took the picture of Anne Frank in 2018. We were already working on it. I started working in a museum in 2016. So back in this time, there were already artists behind the closed doors painting. It took us 5 to 6 years to make it happen with the monumental obstructions. The whole roof had to come off. There were lots of ups and downs. And it's crazy that we opened in this pandemic. Of course, that's not the best moment to open a museum, but we were already preparing it for 5 to 6 years. So yeah, now we're here.
And it's so good that you are. I had a
Thank
question that works with a question from somebody in the audience. Do you provide directions to the artists about what they should paint, or do you let them paint whatever they like? And do you have any artworks that you have refused to show?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Let's start with the first one. Every artist gets 100% creative freedom to paint whatever he or she likes to do. Obviously, I know their style. I know most of the topics that they normally address when they paint. And based on that, I try to select the right corner, the right theme for them. All the themes are quite common, so I can just put them in one of the corners anyway. But yeah, I know obviously the work of the artists that are coming to the museum. Did I ever refuse to show some of the works? Well, we have over 250 artworks here in the museum, of which we show around 150. So there are also a lot of artists that didn't make it to the first cut and didn't make it to the opening of the museum. And some of them are aware. They know they could have done better, or they're right now already, they made steps in their career. And some of them are coming back. And yeah, some of them are just not good enough to show because as I try to explain the museum and the art that is inside the museum, as a European, we say it's the Champions League of artists. And yeah, there is something to prove when you're coming here, and not everybody makes that happen or doesn't realize that in the same way. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is more in the preparation time. right now I bring artists to the museum that are very well known, and yeah, once again, I know their style and I know what they're going to make.
Thank you. Is there a problem with guests touching the paintings?
Yeah. Well, as you can see, well, or you can't see actually, you can't see the other side of the museum. So we only have a couple of people walking around. And yeah, that's the danger of this museum, because there's so many canvases that block the view. It's not possible to keep an eye on everything. Thankfully, most of the people really respect the art, but yeah, it happens. And the crazy thing is, people with their fingers, it actually leaves quite difficult marks to clean again.
Right. I wanted to ask also, NDSM has many things going on besides STRAAT. Could you tell people a little bit about the other NDSM activities?
Yeah. Yeah, as I told you before, it's a very creative area. There's a whole fame around the building. So the whole outside of this building is an area where artists are coming to paint, most of the time daily. But there's also a warehouse next to it where there are lots of different artists with their studios. We have plenty of festivals going around all year. And it's actually the barrier between the new apartments and the new people joining the NDSM Wharf and the old NDSM Wharf with lots of monuments, such as this warehouse, and the warehouse is next to it. And you feel it's a different place than the rest of Amsterdam. It's really, yeah, it's a creative, vibrant place, very relaxed, especially in summer. Winter, it's not so warm here, but and very windy as it is today. But in summer, it's an amazing place to come and visit, not only for the museum, but also for lots of other things going around.
Thank you. And do the artists also sign their paintings? We don't see signatures on them.
Okay. Well, if I'm sorry, I'm going to change again. As you can see here, with this beautiful little kid with amazing eyes, you can see it's painted by Dale Grimshaw. And most of them sign their works, because if you paint in the streets, it can be repainted within hours or days or weeks. And at least then people know who painted it. And it's their way of expressing themselves. So for example, you also have it here with this very American work. Well, at least an American flag. You see there, you can see it's painted by, I hope you can see it, Eddie. Well, believe me, it says Eddie Kolla. He's a dear friend. And yeah, so most artists sign their work. And well, to help the visitors, if they come and visit the museum, we also tell them about the artworks and the artist, because that's obviously something that you don't read in the streets when you see an artwork like this.
Right. Someone wants to know if you have a catalog.
We do actually. Yeah. It's a first edition, so it's only showing a bit of the works that we have on show. It's also not possible to show everything because it's changing all the time, and we also want the people to actually come and visit the museum instead of just seeing it on their couch. And well, Grace, you've been here. It's really difficult, even for now, to get a real idea of how big the space is. You just need to see it in real life. But the catalog gives a great idea of the place and the participating artist. So yeah, we do, and we have a web shop. If you go to if I can say it, the website.
Yes.
Yeah. It's straatmuseum.com. And if you look on top, you see a little a sign that says the shop. So there you can buy the catalog or different works by different artists.
Thank you. Someone else asks, are you considering entering the NFT space? Maybe include museum membership and access to exclusive art?
Again, a really good question. Yeah, well, the street art scene is definitely developing, and we need to develop and evolve with them. And when I was in Miami, I saw lots of artists already doing NFTs and making NFTs. But what I experienced with artists around here, they're still quite cautious about it. They are not really sure what to think of it, and it's definitely something for the future, to also make it possible to give, to let them earn some money. But right now, not yet. But it's somewhere in the plans.
All right.
More questions? Otherwise, I was.
We've gone through, we had so many questions. We've gone through most of them, I believe. So I'm going to say thank you so much to you, David, for this wonderful tour. And I'm sure everybody watching wishes you and STRAAT all the best in the future.
Thank you, Grace.
I hope everyone feels inspired to go and see it in person. It's a wonderful, exciting place. And thanks very much. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining.